Nobody likes rejection, but what if it's your greatest opportunity? Carl Jung thought that rejection does not break us, but reveals us. And when we learn to use it, it becomes our most powerful tool for transformation. Today, we'll dig deep into this tool and how we can convert it into our biggest tool for success, borrowing a leaf from a man called Stallone. Sylvester Stallone is an actor who had a long list of rejections in his early career. From 1969 to 1976, he was denied major acting roles by agencies and directors. But it all changed after he starred in his breakthrough story, Rambo. The big question is, what did Stallone know about rejection that made him keep going? What secret did he know that we don't? Rejection is the most painful, universal human experience. Over the centuries, the desire to be accepted has been the foundation of the human self. We look for acceptance from parents, peers, and authority figures in childhood. But what happens when that validation never arrives? How does our self-perception shift when we face rejection in love, work, or personal relationships? For this, we refer to the works of Carl Jung. Jung, in his classic book on the unconscious, introduces us to a radical concept that rejection is not a singular occurrence, but a reflection of our own unconscious shadows, the things in us that we reject in anticipation of rejection. His theory asks the question, what if rejection were never the opponent? One of the most painful wounds we suffer, both privately and as a society, is the fear of rejection. Leave a star emoji in the comments if you agree. Rejection, not being accepted, not being picked, these hit at the heart. We have been conditioned to equate rejection with failure. However, Jung challenges us to look deeper. To him, everything that disturbs us holds a hidden message waiting to be deciphered. It is within the shadows that our deepest truths are concealed, and paradoxically, where our greatest power also resides. First, we need to understand that rejection is a mirror to self-discovery. In doing so, it transforms from an adversary into a teacher, and this is where we can turn it into our biggest tool for success. Why? Because it reflects our unmet needs, our unhealed stories, and our tendency to hand over our sense of worth to the reactions of others. It shows us where we are still seeking permission to feel enough, where we are still waiting for someone else to validate what we have not yet claimed within ourselves. Look at it this way: you send a message to someone important to you, but receive no immediate response. Within seconds, your mind begins spinning narratives. They do not care about me. Did I say something wrong? Maybe they do not want to talk to me anymore. In just a few minutes, a simple lack of response triggers a storm of insecurities and doubts. Have you had these thoughts before? That is the power of rejection. It slips in quietly, often unnoticed at first, but then begins to echo through the chambers of our inner world. It reactivates old wounds, ones that were formed in childhood and reinforced over time. Think about those subtle dismissals from your parents, the birthdays your aunts forgot, the cold shoulders you received when you wanted to share something personal, the times you were misunderstood by the adults in your life. Our nervous systems remember, even when our minds have long tried to forget. That feeling of being ignored can be reawakened in an instant. But what if we paused before spiraling? What if instead of taking silence personally, we got curious about the reaction it sparked within us? Whenever you get that tightening in the chest or that sinking feeling in the stomach, those are not just responses to this one moment. They are clues pointing toward patterns you carry. They are the remnants of past experiences where we were rendered invisible, voiceless, or felt irrelevant. So, every time we feel rejected, we have the chance to examine our limiting beliefs. At this point, pause and think back on a moment when you were rejected. Were you truly less valuable just at that time? Or were you just too concerned about what others thought of you? Leave your thoughts down in the comments. Rejection stings not merely for what is, but also for the things it reminds us of. It is more akin to a mirror, not simply showing us the missing persons, but also borrowing from our own history. It surfaces the parts of ourselves that were once dismissed or neglected and now crave acknowledgement. This is why even small instances of being ignored can feel overwhelming. They touch something much older and more tender inside of us. Maybe it is not about them at all. Maybe the silence is neutral or even accidental. Maybe it says nothing about our worth and everything about the stories we have come to believe about ourselves. And maybe our need for immediate reassurance is not a flaw, but a signal that there is something within us that longs to be seen and comforted. Not necessarily by the other person, but by ourselves. Perhaps that need is not weakness, but wisdom. Perhaps it is the most honest part of us, the part that still remembers what it felt like to be unseen, unheard, or misunderstood. That quiet ache might be the echo of all the moments we brushed our own feelings aside just to be accepted. And now, in the face of silence, it rises again, not to punish us, but to remind us that we have become so good at analyzing the behavior of others that we forgot to tend to our own hearts. Now, let's talk about reverse psychology for a moment. One of the basic theories of reverse psychology that can be used in rejection is the theory of cognitive reappraisal. This states that how a painful emotional experience is viewed will determine the long-term effect it will have on the individual. It's not the action itself, but its meaning attached that will develop its effect on emotions. Rejection has been seen as abandonment, as a sign that we are not good enough, or it has been seen as redirecting, as an invitation to grow, as evidence that we are being steered towards something that is more in alignment with our truth. However, reverse psychology offers a revolutionary approach. Instead of resisting rejection or begging for recognition, it invites us to shift our perception. Rather than trying to change the outside world, it pushes us inward. Jung spoke of the need for bringing into wholeness the shadow, for becoming conscious of, for owning those things in ourselves of which we are unconscious or are afraid. These are the things we keep hidden, in secret, so no one else discovers, in the hope we don't ever see them ourselves. Reverse psychology is a tool that, when applied consciously, can completely change how we experience rejection and the emotions tied to it. It allows us to step outside the habitual roles we play and challenge the automatic beliefs we have about what rejection means. Instead of focusing on people's judgment of us or internalizing dismissal, we begin to take ownership of our emotional responses. We start to ask, not how can I avoid this feeling, but what is this feeling here to teach me? One thing that rejection does is that it does not create that space for insecurities, but exposes it. If rejection reminds us of how unworthy we are, instead of running away from this sensation, we could ask ourselves, why am I trying to get this outer world's acceptance? What in me am I not respecting? There is always a mismatch between how we are trying to be in the eyes of the world and how we are feeling within. This mismatch is fertile ground for insecurities. Another truth we need to accept is that rejection has a way of shaking the foundation we have built our identity. The stories we have told ourselves for years begin to crack. It stirs up repressed fears and unresolved business. It makes us nervous because it strikes the parts of us that we work so hard to conceal: fear of not being good enough, the premise that we must labor for love, the habit of forsaking ourselves just to be chosen. But in doing so, it also reveals to us what we will outgrow. It brings awareness to the outdated patterns we have been carrying. It challenges us to redefine what worth means on our own terms, not as something fragile or conditional, but as something rooted deep within that cannot be taken away by someone else's inability to see it. You probably know someone who has changed themselves many times or overdone it just to avoid rejection. Your friend who has changed career paths too many times. That friend endures a relationship that isn't healthy for them. We adapt, we change, and too often we trade our authenticity just to fit in. There is a subtle cost to all this adapting. We lose touch with the parts of ourselves that feel too risky to expose. We learn to read the room, but become strangers to our wants. But do you know that this pursuit of approval can become a dangerous trap? Yes, it promises connection, but often leads to disconnection from our truest selves. In trying so hard to be loved, we begin to mold ourselves into what we think others require. We silence our wants, fuzz our boundaries, and censor our true nature to fit into spaces never built to hold us. Over time, this disconnect becomes a quiet ache, a sense that we are present but not fully seen, that we are included but not truly known. It teaches us that acceptance is something to be earned through performance, rather than something we inherently deserve. We start to believe that we must be impressive to be embraced, that love is a reward for perfection rather than a space where we can simply exist as we are. We begin to get mixed up between being liked and being loved, and being needed and being valued. These are subtle but key differences that affect how we relate to ourselves and to other people. Jung reminds us that true transformation happens when we stop searching for answers outside ourselves and instead turn inward to discover what has always been within. It is in this inward journey that we find the parts of us we have buried beneath layers of people-pleasing and self-doubt. The parts we hide the most are often the ones that carry the greatest potential for growth. They hold our rawness, our truth, our creative fire. They are not flaws to be corrected, but invitations to be understood. Rejection shines a light on those hidden places. It interrupts our patterns. It strips away the roles we play and asks us to look more closely at who we are when no one is watching, when there is no applause to chase or earn. What remains in those quiet moments is the essence of who we are, and the more we come to know that essence, the less we depend on the world outside ourselves to inform us about who we are meant to be. Rather than seeing rejection as an end, we can begin to recognize it as a beginning, a clearing, a quiet invitation to listen more deeply to ourselves, to ask what we actually want rather than what we think others want from us. It becomes an opportunity to rediscover ourselves, build unshakable self-worth, and remember that our value is not determined by what people think of us. It never was. Accepting our shadow, integrating our wounds, and embracing the uncertainty of rejection can lead us to a more fulfilling and authentic existence. These are not abstract principles to be practiced only during periods of deep reflection. They are invitations to bring more awareness into the way we move through the world. Every uncomfortable interaction, every ignored message, and every moment where we feel unseen can become a doorway back to ourselves. Jung taught that the shadow, the suppressed, unacknowledged parts of ourselves, is not something to be eliminated, but rather something to be integrated. These are the aspects we have learned to silence because they were labeled as wrong, too much, not enough, or unlovable. They live beneath the surface, shaping how we relate to others and ourselves. Rejection has a way of exposing the shadow. It brings up the discomfort we usually try to hide. And in this exposure lies a rare opportunity. Rejection is not a punishment. It is a golden opportunity to deepen our self-awareness, to become more intimate with our inner world, to learn how to be steady in the face of uncertainty. In this journey of self-discovery, there is no better guide than our own shadow. As Jung famously said, "What you deny enslaves you. What you accept transforms you." So, are you ready to turn rejection into your greatest ally? If you are, type "I'm ready" in the comments. So how do we apply this wisdom in our daily lives? It begins with awareness, noticing the instant stories we tell ourselves when rejection shows up. catching the spiral before it pulls us under. We can pause. We can ask different questions. Don't ask, why did they do this to me? But what is this reaction revealing about me? What fear is being activated? What is it within me that is asking for compassion and not judgment? The second step is to practice radical self-acceptance. We're not talking of a passive state of resignation, but an active and courageous decision to meet ourselves exactly where we are. Instead of frantically trying to make others like us, turn inwards and begin to build a relationship with ourselves on the foundation of compassion and truth. What would this cost you? One word: acknowledgement. You'll have to accept the parts you've been taught to hide, the vulnerability, the doubt, the longing. It means reminding ourselves again and again that we are worthy of love even when we are not chosen, that our value does not fluctuate based on someone else's ability to see it. A strong inner foundation is not built overnight, but with each moment of self-affirmation, each choice to be kind to ourselves when we feel most unworthy, that foundation becomes more solid and more enduring. Thirdly, you can use reverse psychology to shift your mindset. If someone rejects you, don't see it as a loss, but as redirection. What if this is not protecting you from something that is against your goals and dreams? What if rejection isn't a slam door, but a push along an alternative way? Will this realignment eliminate the pain of rejection? Number. But it changes how we carry it. Reverse psychology may be the key to this integration. When we are rejected, we tend to rebel. We wish to be accepted, approved of, and loved. We wish to fix the situation or fix ourselves. This is merely a reinforcement of the fact that we are broken independent of other people's approval. But with reverse psychology, we can redefine rejection and use that same energy to strengthen us rather than to weaken us. Psychological studies have shown that individuals who develop emotional detachment make a conscious attempt to develop greater resilience and a more secure sense of self-worth. This is not about being cold or unfeeling. It's about creating enough space within ourselves to bear witness to our emotions without becoming possessed by them. Emotional detachment is the ability to hold pain without being possessed by it. It allows us to sit with unease and stay grounded in who we are. If instead of viewing rejection as a judgment about our worth, we view it as an invitation to self-growth and development, we take back our power. We stop reacting from wounded places and start reacting from a place of self-awareness. The change does not take away the pain, but it reframes what the pain represents. It is a stepping stone, not a stumbling block. Rejection is not who we are anymore. It drives our expansion. It's now part of the story we tell ourselves, no longer as the time that fractured, but as the time we began healing. And in healing, we're not seeking wholeness from others anymore, but discovering the wholeness that was always present. Jung felt the soul needs independence in order to develop, and some degree of that derives from leaving go of requiring positive reinforcement. As long as we set our worth meter by other people's standard, then we remain part of the cycle, pleasing, being pleased. Real growth requires a breakup of the pleasing cycle. It invites us to return to ourselves again and again, to look for clarity, not in the way we are received, but in the way we get to meet. Letting go is the key to this process. Day in and day out, we hold on to jobs, friends, or relationships that do not bring us joy because we are afraid of rejection or being alone. The comfort of familiarity can be strongly misleading. We hold on not because something is supporting us, but because we are afraid of what life would be like without it. Fear is inhibiting. It silences the wiser voice within that sees when something is over. However, reverse psychology offers us a way to break free from these mental chains. It teaches us to step back rather than push forward. It invites us to ask, what happens if I stop needing this to work out a certain way? What shifts when I stop begging for attention or resolution? The answer is often surprising. When we stop insisting on something that causes us suffering, we experience inner liberation. That letting go is not loss, it is opening. It creates space for understanding, for healing, and for new possibilities to enter that were once excluded by our holding on. We begin to understand that our power lies not in controlling the result, but in choosing how we respond to it. Rejection or loss no longer means we have failed. It simply means something has fallen away to make room for something more aligned. This is the quiet revolution of reverse psychology. It turns the energy we once expended looking for support outward inward, where it is accessible to create resilience, clarity, and a deeper understanding of who we really are. Lastly, when we release the need for affirmation from others and embrace the idea that everything happens for a reason, we become newly liberated. No longer are we at the mercy of others' opinions or trapped in cycles of over-analysis of each interaction. We begin to understand that our worth is not something to be negotiated. It is not dependent on how we are treated, but on how deeply we know and accept ourselves. We start to realize that we don't need the world's consent to be whole. That wholeness has always been inside us, waiting for the static to clear so that we can hear it. The more we let go of needing things to go in a specific manner, the more space we have for life to surprise us. Possibilities that once seemed distant begin to flow more easily. Relationships that feel effortless begin to replace those that once drained us. It is not because we are trying harder, but because we are finally aligned with our truth. It is in this state of authenticity and self-assurance that we begin to attract experiences that genuinely align with our essence. We stop chasing and start receiving. We stop performing and start living. There is a quiet strength that comes from no longer needing to prove anything, from trusting that even the detours and the disappointments have a purpose. So the next time you face rejection, remember that it is not the end. It is an invitation to grow, to trust the process, to allow life to lead you toward what truly belongs to you. Rejection is not a dead end. It is a message from the universe redirecting your energy towards something more in tune with your destiny. In the moment, it may feel like a loss, yet often it is the very thing that makes way for more alignment, more connection, and unforeseen growth. So remember, rejection isn't a barrier, it's a gateway to your greatest breakthroughs. The next time someone says, "I'm sorry, you don't belong here," just smile, because they're unknowingly guiding you toward where you're truly meant to be. Now, it's your turn to inspire others. Comment below and tell us about a time when rejection led you somewhere unexpected and amazing. Your story could be exactly what someone else needs to hear today. If this video resonated with you, like it, subscribe, and hit the notification bell to join our community of empowered thinkers ready to transform life's setbacks into comebacks. Remember Jung's powerful words: what you deny enslaves you. What you accept transforms you. Your transformation begins now. Thanks for watching. See you in the next video.